Hi everyone, welcome to Brown Corner Talks with Brown People. My guest today is Mariana Moscoso. They are a co-founder of the Decolonization Project, a community organizer, and an activist. So let's dig right in.
Yay. To decolonize, it really means to unlearn behaviors that emulate a capitalist system that is really detrimental to all of us. For example, patriarchy. Patriarchy is deeply embedded into every aspect of colonization, including when many of the people that came to settle the Americas, they referred to the land as female, as a way of overtaking her, conquering her, as a way of possession, which is really a fundamental part of colonization. And so when we dismantle patriarchy, we have to unlearn behaviors that have been part of our belief system and our actions since long before we were born. So that's one way that I see decolonization. So it's an unlearning, but it's also a relearning. I can't emphasize how important it is to be reflective through this whole process, because really to be able to decolonize, we have to be able to see where our proximity to white supremacy, and that proximity means that we're benefiting from a system that has been colonial and exploitative and is basically causing harm to people, nature, and the world around us, and how we're complicit to that system. And when we recognize that, we start making small changes. But also, there's bigger things that we could do, and that means really like being involved in advocacy work, or supporting people, organizations of color, supporting businesses of color. Everything adds up. It's really a self-identifying term, and our relationship to white supremacy and our position within white supremacy and how much we benefit. So I am a person of color because my parents are immigrants to this country. I'm a mix of African, indigenous, and European ancestry. And so that has placed me in a certain position within society just by the mere way that I look, the way my genes have, the phenotypes have expressed themselves. And so that relationship there is how I'm a person of color, but it's also political because well, it's a very politicized term, because you could also be someone that expresses phenotypes as myself, but not identify as a person of color. It can be someone who simply does not find a relationship to the different oppressions that they may or may not experience. Yes. I think one of the most important things that we can do within a decolonizing practice is healing work. And healing work really means, like I was talking about earlier, really digging deep into what are the behaviors and practices that we use every day that can be harmful to ourselves and others. So in Mayan, there's a phrase that goes in Lakesh, and in Lakesh means you are my other self. And so as that culture being part of my ancestry, I really have adopted that term, and when I walk in the world, I try to see myself in that way. And there's a James Baldwin quote, and I'm going to read it, that really speaks a lot of truth to me as well in terms of in Lakesh, because I also don't want people walking all over me. It says, "We can disagree and still love each other. unless your disagreement is rooted in my oppression and denial of my humanity and the right to exist. So that's just how I walk in the world in terms of decolonization, understanding that it's a process, understanding that we have to heal and change ourselves in order to be the reflection of the world that we want to live in. And to me, that's what real liberation is like. Decolonization is the process, but the end goal, the place where we should all want to be, is liberation. And I think a lot of people think of liberation as something collective, and it is a collective process and experience, but it's also an internal one. So as we start to remove the layers of the colonial system, we start to liberate ourselves from all the rules that keep us in check, so to speak, that keep us controlled, that tell us how we should move our bodies, how our bodies should be, how our behaviors should be. And then as we start to peel those off, we start to feel the weight come off our shoulders, and we become more rooted in ourselves. And I think that's what decolonization is, to be rooted in who we are, our stories within the truth. And that truth is ugly at times. It involves genocide, exploitation. It involves the erasure of Native American culture and people in the United States. And it involves slavery and exploitation, and even folks that have come later, how we are all participants still within that system. And so as we start to peel off these layers and are honest with ourselves and can look at ourselves in the mirror with truth, it's healing. And so I think that's the direction we should take now.